Hello, midlifing listeners. Lee here. Just to say that today's episode has some conversations that some people might find a little bit difficult. Simon and I have an extended conversation about the topic of miscarriage. Please be assured that what we're trying to do is discuss it in the most sensitive way that we can manage, and the intention is not to provoke any discomfort in any of you. Okay, on with the podcast. Speaking of listeners, we've got two emails in the post box, haven't we?
I don't want to make it sound like we're being inundated, but we've had an enormous quantity of email.
Well, it's 100% increase in the emails from last week. So statistically, we're in a very, very strong space.
It's true. It's it's an exponential rise, basically, in the volume of email.
Gosh, imagine if this just keeps going. By February, we'll have literally 8. I can't do sums. It will be more than that. I know.
Well, yes, let's not get into exponentials because they increase quickly.
This is a podcast in which two friends have serious conversations about silly things and silly conversations about serious things.
I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller.
Welcome to Midlifing.
Bagriana Popoff. I hope I'm saying her name correctly.
I'm just going to let it hang there because you've definitely got the letters in the right order. Actually, she has lots of questions in this email.
She does. One of them is how many times I shower a day, because any more than 3 is a problem. I'm happy to announce that I only really shower once a day, twice if it's a special occasion.
The thing about Bagriana in this case is that she flirts with feedback. There's no question she's flirting with feedback here.
Oh, for sure.
She's it's irresponsible on her part.
I think so. I'd say borderline rude, but I've never met her. So
yeah, quite a few questions come to mind after listening to your delightful, ridiculous and provocative podcast. Apologies if that resembles feedback. Yes,
it does. It feels a lot like feedback. Yeah. But one of the questions, I've answered
the showering one.
The shower question, but the other question is what we haven't talked about over the last 14 years. And
I'm nervous.
Well, yeah. This is probably part 2 of our Christmas fucking hell.
Christmas
I just realised where I'm going to go. This is our Christmas themed podcast, and I am about to drop the mother of all shits on the floor. So this comes up because of the idea of you using humour to deflect a difficult moment. And
you really are. This is a really difficult This is a
I know. And it will probably end up with one or both of us crying. I just want to preface that. I wouldn't talk about this if Bob hadn't published about it already. So Bob has gone on the record. This is not me speaking about something which isn't mine to speak about. Because Bob has written about it in 2 or 3 different... she's written a chapter about notions of grief. She's written at least 2 articles about grief and performance in relationship to miscarriages that she's had, of which she's had more than one. And miscarriages are a really... First of all, there's something that are not spoken about very often. When they are spoken about, we've just seen over the last couple of weeks that Meghan Markle, who married the Queen Elizabeth II's grandson, what's he called? Ginger one, Harry. And she's now the Duchess of, I don't know, a place, Surrey, Sussex? Anyway, she's a former actor. She wrote in
New York Times.
She wrote about a miscarriage that she experienced over the summer. And wouldn't you know, the British tabloids went to town on her. There's been lots of think pieces about whether this is or isn't just deeply systemic racism about attacking a woman of colour. Who had the temerity to marry into the whitest family in Christendom. So whether it's that or it's not, I don't know whether it's racist. It's certainly sexist. The fact that what the response of many British tabloids was, oh God, looking for sympathy. Why doesn't she just keep this kind of thing private? Why on earth is she talking about this? And it's because that miscarriage is something that we just don't know how to speak about. They're depressingly routine. And often absorbed into a person's life because they're maybe bracketed by successful births, and they take on a different sort of heft if they're not bracketed by successful births, which is the case for us. So I'm always grateful when people write about it, when women write about it. One of the things I think is interesting is that it's very rare for men to offer a perspective about miscarriage, because it's a strange thing that doesn't happen to you. It happens near you. But where it sits as an experience is it's hard. It's hard to talk about without looking like you are trying to steal the thunder of the person who experienced the loss from their body, which is something which is, I find, incalculable. I don't know how it's so alien, because men don't grow things. Men don't grow things, so we don't understand it at all. It's utterly alien to us.
Yeah.
So I remember that after the first miscarriage, we told you, or I told you, and you said, think about how much fun you can have making the next one.
Oh, Simon.
And it was...
Did I really?
Yeah, but what I was more angry about was me, that I didn't use that as an opportunity to talk to you about your response. Mm-hmm. And instead, I maybe spent the next 3 or 4 years just very quietly withdrawing from you. Being less present, I don't mean that we didn't see each other or didn't speak to each other. I was less emotionally available. I was less with you. I think that's probably fair to say that was the case for the world. Because this was the beginning of a long process.
Oh, mate.
We're at the very much at the other side of it now. So, I mean, I don't think it's one of those things that I'd ever be able to make light of, but it's not something that I don't wince when I hear the word miscarriage, and I no longer look at pregnant people and, I'll cut this bit out, but want to push them underneath buses. Which I won't lie, that was a wild moment, just going, I fucking hate all of you. How dare you? How dare you be fecund in front of me? Or rather, how dare you be fecund in front of Bob? Anyway, so that is something that we haven't spoken about. The fact that there are things that, and I'm sure there must have been moments, Simon, where I have said something that has wounded you and you haven't felt able to bring me up on.
Yeah, I have this is kind of, it is funny in a way, because I actually have what I've described as a scorched earth policy towards memory, which is really useful in a therapeutic sense. Meaning, someone will say, "Do you remember when?" No, I don't have any memory of that at all. And so it's not because I'm trying to, block a memory, or it's more that I got a really shit memory. Yeah. And so I guess I could conjure up something, but it's not like I've been, holding on to something which I really wanted to talk about with you. But also, I don't want to bat away. Also, just so this doesn't become a tennis match. No, I'm really serious.
No, if it was a tennis match, I would lose, because we know that you're semi-pro.
But yeah, I do. I feel just profoundly saddened by the situation you're talking about, but also my response to it, and because my response is also was and is also so it's so blah and so riddled with kind of masculine bullshit. It really is. It's just totally. I don't even know where to begin with it, really. And so, yeah, it's great. I get to apologize to you again on a podcast. But I guess I'm curious about. I'm not trying to deflect from it again as well, but it's this thing about humor is because in a way that's also what we're doing here in this conversation. These conversations are about talking about funny things seriously, and serious things in a funny way. So those lines are really, they're kind of perfect for me, because do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I do. I suppose it starts to unpick questions about, well, what are the serious things that we can be light about, and it's not about what are the lines that are impossible to be crossed, because I did say, I feel like I'm about to drop the biggest turd on the floor, which, in a sense, conversationally speaking, I have.
Well, no, not at all. Come on, this is gold.
But this is an interesting moment for us, because like I think the people who are listening know that we are finding our rhythm. They know that there are moments where we've been doing kind of massively inane prattle, which is just like silliness.
I don't agree. I've heard no inanities.
How dare you? This is my legacy that I'm speaking of here. But we it's safe to say that we have tonal shifts. But how, I wonder, because this is okay. Now, I wonder how this sort of a story sits in somebody's ears. Somebody who hasn't asked for this, because now I'm going to. Last time we talked, I used the word triggering about your nail bed injury.
I shouldn't laugh.
Well, no, you can't, because we were talking about something. We were using a high value word for a low value,
or certainly
occurrence.
a word with a lot of currency in these days.
Yeah. I like how you replaced high value with currency.
I'm so sorry.
No, I just really enjoyed that.
I was reinforcing what you were saying.
I think there's a better word.
Currency, I was thinking euros, sterling, American dollars, lira.
There's no such thing as lira anymore.
Isn't there Turkish lira?
I was thinking Italian lira. I'm sorry, I don't know enough. I've only been to Turkey once.
Maybe they have euros there now.
I don't know. It's a long time since I was in Turkey, and it was pre the euro. Anyway, I was thinking that we evoked the term triggering.
What do you mean, we white man? I've never used it.
Okay, so but now we are in a territory that has the potential to be genuinely, and I'm going to use the word, I think, not just in the sense of its currency, but actually in the real sense that it could well be triggering for people who are listening, because to go back to the huge critiques that were laid at Meghan Markle's door by beginning to talk about her miscarriage in a public context. It's like, this is you're looking for attention. You don't share this material. It's like, well, yeah, there are lots of people who have never spoken about their experiences in a more beyond the kind of the very close knit friendship groups or familial context. Bob, as I said, has published about it, because if anybody
I've read some of it.
I think there's one she writes in a special edition of it's called Studies in Theatre and Performance, STP it gets called for short.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And she wrote about the idea of carrying a zombie. Because the first miscarriage she had was something called a missed miscarriage or a silent miscarriage, which is where the baby stops developing, and the person carrying the fetus doesn't expel the tissue, and so they don't know that they're no longer pregnant, and they don't know that they're no longer pregnant until there is a scan.
So in this case, pregnancy, if you're carrying what's effectively a dead fetus, you are no longer pregnant?
Oh, no. If you are carrying a fetus which is no longer viable, which is dead, you are still pregnant because the body is still producing hormones. And that's what's really confusing. So Bob was continuing to have morning sickness. Bob was having all of the symptoms of pregnancy. And then there was a scan, and then she continued to have the symptoms of pregnancy because the decision that the medical team make is, well, it's not a decision. They say, what do you want to do? We can go in and remove the fetus surgically. We can give you some pills which will effectively help the material be shed, or we can just let nature take its course. We tend to advise that you let nature take its course because it's better for the body. If you intend to try and get pregnant again later and all of those sorts of things, because it minimises potential risks down the line. And so Bob opted for the advice and continued to carry this baby for, I think, another 6 weeks. So she writes about the idea of taking it places. She writes about the idea of going on an aeroplane for the first time and with it, and so it is, it's a really nice piece of writing. I'll link to it. We will link to it in the notes. Although I have the strangest feeling that this will never get published, as in this conversation.
It's funny when you use the T word. It wasn't clear to me. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because in a way, I'm keeping two conversations in my mind here at the moment, and one is about the circumstances and the details of which, when you're talking about. What happened with Bob and with you and Bob, and these miscarriages? These are specifics I'm not aware of. I don't know them, and that's in part because if I'm going to deflect from the seriousness of something, it's not exactly inviting specifics, is it? So that's one. That's one. So there's the specifics of that situation, and then there's the second conversation, which is a conversation about friendship and the margins and edges of friendship, which is how it began, which is what are the things you've never talked about. And also you said because for 3 or 4 years you withdrew, and that's not that doesn't come as a surprise to me, that you would have chose to do that or felt the need to do that, but also it's not like it wasn't not obvious to me. Right, that's not a. And I guess my question would be, well, what changed? Like, why is it that we might approach some kind of intimacy again as friends now?
Oh, that's a really, really good question, and I've thought long and hard about that myself because
we're spending a lot of time together at the moment. Not obviously,
Yeah. No, I know, we're not.
Who does that anymore?
but mentally. You said that you have a scorched earth policy when it comes to memory. I have a scorched earth policy when it comes to friendship.
You mean that's right? You like that's
I'm really, really easy at just going dead to me, walk away.
I was going to say it's very hard to get rid of me.
No, well. Actually, I did find it very hard to get rid of you. I found it hard. I did find it really hard to get to just be able to do the scorched earth with you, because it was a moment of, although it's characteristic of the way that you cope with discomfort
and comfort, actually.
Yeah, actually that's true. You do use humor, in both ends of that spectrum. But it was where I think it was uncharacteristic, and I think it was uncharacteristic in the sense that this was entirely unintentional, is that it was the only time in 14 years that I had experienced cruelty. And I didn't experience cruelty in the intention, I experienced cruelty in the reception. Oh, and there is a difference there.
That is amazing.
And I think...
Sorry, keep going.
But I knew that at the time, but I also knew that I wasn't able to have the conversation with you. I wasn't able to say, mate, that's too much, let me explain why. Because I was just in it. And also
You mean you didn't understand
You know.
the process that you were in
Oh,
you were
I
deep
didn't
in the
understand
middle
I
of
didn't
something
understand
incredibly complex and painful and...
I was deep at
Sorry,
the
yeah.
start of something. I wish I was in.
Yeah, yeah.
No. I mean, Christ, I wish I'd been in the middle of it. I don't know how you. I still don't really know how you mourn something that isn't, and has never been. Which is why, to keep hammering back to Meghan Markle, I think it's so important to talk about it in a public context.
I'm going to do that, preface something I'm about to say by saying this is interesting.
Everybody's pinning their ears back now.
The end to say it. What you experienced, that statement about, having fun making another one. Oh, just even saying it like that just makes my heart fucking sing. Oh. As I understand it, as I understand myself, I'm not trying to not talk about it. My desire is to not. It's not to avoid it, right? It's more that stuff, that deflecting, as you described it, deflecting is definitely a way of evoking and trying to. It's bizarre, actually. I think comfort, meaning that we can be in a situation now. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And so this is this beautiful thing you said the other day about not never being able to know the intentions of the things that people say. We can only know the words and not their intent. But in this case, the effect of the words is so fundamentally opposite to their desire, and the gravity of that opposition is phenomenal in the context of a friendship, in the context of the experience of pain that you were going through, and that's where the humor in that case is just terrible, because it has the power to do that. It really does. And I am going to say it again. I'm sorry. And also, I love you.
Oh, sweetheart, I love you too.
Yeah. And
that's another reason that the scorched
you couldn't scorch earth me.
But I couldn't. No, I couldn't, because if I was to weigh your actions, across even up until that moment, leave alone the points after, the weight of kindness was so heavily on your side, and I knew that. I think on some level I knew that.
Do you keep a spreadsheet about that?
I'm not my mother. I knew that there was too much. So we've just been talking here about intention reception, and I also don't want this to become a delve or a dive into just one thing, because Bagliana, was that better?
I just think your first effort was closer to how I would say it.
Bagriano.
There you actually.
I'll say it like a Mancunian, like I am.
Yeah, go
on. Bagriano.
Oh, that's great. That's
great. Bagriano. Anyway,
she will love that. Also, can I? Oh, sorry. You should finish your thought.
No, I will. It's not finishing, because it's starting. Because I was going to say that we're talking about intention and reception, and you referenced back that idea of knowing what conversation we were in, and she asked another question, which was, what signs do you think you showed that could explain how the Italian woman interpreted the situation?
Yeah, she's referring to episode 4, which is you've never thrown your keys in my fishbowl, right? That situation.
Yeah, that's the situation where you were in a conversation where you thought one thing was happening and somebody thought another thing was happening, which I guess we've sort of just negotiated in a micro way, that you thought one thing was happening and I thought another thing was happening.
Yeah, so
you thought you were opening up a door to have a conversation.
Okay, so the question: what signs do you think you showed, Simon, that could explain how the Italian woman interpreted the situation? Meaning, she interpreted it one way and I thought I was doing one thing. So background is fantastically saying, what were you responsible for, Simon? Isn't she? I mean, I'm not trying to be too hard on myself either, because if that's one thing we've talked about, it's like, how can we also go easy on ourselves? Look, I think the thing that you have to understand is that my professional life for a long time was going into companies of people who we might have known each other, but we would be together for 6 weeks. this is pickup dance companies, so they're
Right.
and you would spend intense amount of time together for a short amount of time. Sometimes it might be 3 months, sometimes it might be 6 weeks, sometimes it might be just 3 weeks. And the degree of intimacy in those spaces is high, right? You're physically in contact with people. You're mostly talking about highly intimate things that are going on in the situation or about things about humans. So that it's incredibly, let's say fecund, if I can use that word again. It's full of people being with each other in a way that no other workplace I can imagine is like. Perhaps in theatre companies, yes, but again, the pickup thing makes a difference because it's not like it's not like year upon year with the same people. Mm-hmm. And I think I bring a certain amount of that to any conversation I have, which is a kind of openness and a willingness or a readiness, which is, I guess ironic, given the deflecting. The deflector shields version of myself. And I think it would be very easy for someone, particularly not a native speaker of English, to hear that bubbliness and that willingness to talk about things which is more than the weather and more than what did you do today, to read those as indicators of intimacy.
Don't get me started on the hilarious IVF stories. You've never had a more disappointing wank than the one that you have, while somebody is waiting on the other side of a serving hatch to receive your plastic cup full of jizz.